nowadays we have everything's socially conscious. Everyone's talking about identity, making sure their stories represent who they are. So do you feel pressure to tell your black story or your black male British story when you're trying to be successful? Because some people are like, let's get this kind of mainstream commercial story out of the way, get the success, then we can tell the real story that we want to tell. Do you feel any of that type of pressure, or it just whatever comes out?
I don't know if it's a pressure. I think maybe for myself I put that pressure on myself, but I think it's something I want to talk about. I think knowing that where you want the success first kind of is like the safeguard to be like, industry, don't blackball me yet, but like you're allowed to talk about what you want. There's a freedom of expression, but you know, in terms of the spread you want it to have. If you're writing within, I think then you kind of like if you decide to go on a tangent now and just decide to write some militant kente shit, like
that's the next one.
But, you know what I mean? But like you've already got the space where you know you can play at the level, and everyone's recognised that, and it's like, you know, why not let him create something else? It's like, you know, you think the spread's there, people are into what you'll be doing, and you want it to reach as far and wide as you can.
Is there a fear then, like if your story, if you think of something like, oh my god, it's too black, okay, let me write in some other characters.
To be honest, it's the other way.
Yeah.
It's the other way more so. Sometimes I'm more like, that idea is not black enough. Like, I don't know if they're gonna sit me in the office. It could be the production companies, or it could be the audience. Even the pressure of just like, you know,
you sell out.
Back to exactly, yeah. Back to my web series. You know, enough about me. We can talk about me for a second. Like having a show, as far as like breaking these Christian values of like being engaged and then agreeing to date other people, I was scared, but then I was like, oh, that's a reason to do it then, because I think it's just a fun genre, and I know people that live like that, and but that was the pressure there. And I say pressure meaning no one actually gave me pressure. It's like almost like your own, because you just have an awareness of an audience that you think won't like it, and then you can scare yourself into not doing things. So, but for me, yeah, it's more the other way. Sometimes I have ideas like that.
I wouldn't say pressure, but I feel like there's an air of responsibility in some way. When we first brought out the first episode of Brothers in Our Game, the responses were insane on YouTube, and they were saying thank you. As in, thank you for showing three-dimensional black characters. We wanted to see something different, and ever since then, they've kind of stuck by us, so I always feel a sense of responsibility. So 90% of what I will make will have a majority black cast. And it's because, I guess, you know, my circle is eclectic, but I do have, you know, very, very close black friends, and I feel it's good to write what you know. It's your truth. It's my truth, yeah.
I'm guessing stories that you want to tell as well.
Exactly. And these stories are all universal still, you know. Everyone goes through relationship issues, dating, friendship, all of that.
Just to clarify, we did have some female writers booked, but they were unavailable at the last minute, not well and stuff like that. Just saying. But writers writing for...
She put that at the beginning. Put that at the beginning.
Yeah, just throwing it in there. Sisterhood. Patriarchy, whatever. When it comes to writing for people that you aren't, so it could be sexuality, it could be female characters, how do you then take on that, attack that from that perspective?
I've been, I'll keep it quick, but I've been blessed with 3 sisters, multiple daddy issues, long story. But generally I've got sisters that, in terms of being around women, I've grown up with women my entire life, essentially. So there's that, but I think emotionally, I have the idea that emotion is all we have different triggers, but emotion itself is all relative. So if you can have a sense of empathy to put yourself in someone else's shoes, it makes it at least easier. Maybe not as accurate, that's why you get women to read your stuff. But it gets you closer to it, I think.
So you need to consult people.
Consult people, and then creatively, I think, try different things. I like to sometimes just switch the genders of characters I've already written. You find interesting things that way. Because then sometimes, as I'm still a male writing a female character, and I'm like, I'm gonna write her like a badass, but then I'm still writing a badass of what I think is a badass, and that still ends up with some sort of sexism. Yeah, thank you. So try and keep mixing it up. It takes a while to develop that, man. First started writing, my female characters were terrible. Perfect. They were perfect specimens. You knew everything to say. Like.
Well, I suppose it's like getting it's like I will get female writers to read my stuff for that reason. But in saying that, I also get black people to read my stuff because it's just me one. So I want to make sure that, you know, I'm getting these black people right. And, you know, I think it would be the same with anything.
So the word of the day is consultation.
Yes, there we go.
Collaboration.
Yeah.
So, guys, how did you know that being a writer is what you wanted to do?
Yeah.
So difficult.
Yeah.
I can go first because I've dealt with that one a lot. This question a lot. I think I used to act, like a few of you on the table. I used to act, but I think in sense of expression and just like you have to express the way you feel comfortable. Mine wasn't necessarily on stage being like, hey, 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 like it was more just in the words. I love English language, like I study words, period. And it just felt best to come from there, like the best place of honest expression.
Do you remember that moment happening though? Like when you're like, this is...
Yeah, it was when you finish like the third or fourth script and then someone gives it back and goes, it's actually okay.
Right.
Like, when it's never your own recognition. You sit at that table and you're like, it's never good enough. Or like, I do that. I'm like, it's never going to be finished. But then you give it out. And of course they just say, you know what, it's actually a good script. You need that kind of, the outward recognition to go, oh, you know what, you're competent at something.
You're actually good at doing it.
And acting never really got those responses. So, figured it out.
You just slowly shifted.
Till people said you were lit.
Yeah.
I'll stay here. I like this.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's a nice room. What about you guys? Because you were all...
I mean, I started acting also. Well, weirdly enough, stand-up. I started doing stand-up, so I was part of a double act. So I think acting and writing just kind of went hand in hand. And I've always kind of seen myself kind of as both. Probably more so actor than writer, but they've always gone hand in hand. And I suppose I've always enjoyed writing, like you was just saying, it's like being able to express yourself. And it's just, I think that's why I've always loved writing. It's as much as I love acting and acting other people's words, when you're able to act your own words, there's like a real satisfaction to it.
Yeah.
So was it sounds like there's a sense of creating for yourself. Was that anyone else's kind of, if I'm not seeing it being written or visualised on TV, so I'm going to write?
I think not when I started. When I initially started writing, I was just surprised that people were going to let me do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, to a point of like, I did this thing at the Lyric Hammersmith and with Simon Stevens, and we learned how to write plays. And I was like, so you're a professional playwright? You do this all day, every day? Like, I don't know, in school you're not taught that writing, you're taught, do not become a writer. Do not do this. It's a terrible idea. So you're like, no one does it. And I remember we had to write a piece for drama and NFL drama jokes. But nearly failed English as well. Do you know what I mean? So we had to write a piece in drama, and it was, I remember seeing someone else perform it being like, wow, like, I really want to do this. So not initially wanting to create for myself, just being really excited at the idea that I can create. I'm allowed to do that. And
what was any of your first writing jobs? How did you actually get started as a professional writer? And where? What?
Professional?
Yeah. Do you, I mean, when did you become a professional?
Yeah, we're paid.
Paid,
yeah.
basically, yeah.
My first paid writing gig was Rusteau, so that was like, that was a dream. I remember, because basically I guessed this producer's email, because I've got this thing where, like, you know, if my agent doesn't do it, I'll just guess their email and I'll try it until it goes through. And like, do you know what I mean? So many times it does go through. Yeah, but it worked. Like, my boy got the head of Warner Brothers as his mentor from guessing his email. Anyway, jump back to Rusteau. I guessed his email. I went in, pitched him my cartoon idea, and he optioned that. And then he was like, do you want to write for Rusteau? So obviously I'm trying to be real cool as fuck. I'm like, yes, please. And then
Let's see if I've got time.
If the job centre allows me to do it. I don't know if I can be signed on and write Rusteau, so I'm going to talk to you later.
Kind of like what's going on over here.
And it was like that, and I just, you know, I was right. I just learned from that gig that I was like, wow, okay, cool. And I just got it from a whim.
There's a cool website called Email Hunter.
Oh, yeah?
Where if you know the website, like brothersnogame.com,
yeah,
just go to their type in browsernogame.com and it will search the whole internet for all of those emails.
Really?
And it will give you
Email
every
Hollyoaks.
person.
Yeah, but then again, but you'd get there
away
eventually, though,
Yeah,
wouldn't
you
you? You'd be
do.
like D, like for me, D.Taylor or Daniel dot Taylor or Daniel Taylor, DT,
Taylor
yeah, and then
yeah.
at every type of way that.
Hell, yeah.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've been there.
Just wait to see which ones don't bounce back.
Yeah. And when they do bounce back, it hurts. I'm not gonna lie. Like, oh,
It's
nearly
such an
there.
achievement when you get through.
Oh,
isn't
it is.
amazing.
But it's deep when it goes through and they don't respond. It's like, oh, no.
So about your first page job.
I worked with a company called Hoots Comedy, and they bought a pilot script from me, and the number was good. That made me realize, oh, okay, I am a writer. The number was really, really good.
He bought YouTube.
Yeah, I ended up buying YouTube. This is why we're here, basically. No problem.
Congratulations, man.
Much appreciated.
Basically.
So it seems like is there a need to prove, like going into that room and saying, okay, I write. What's the proof? What's needed to go to a commissioner or whatever and say, I'm a writer. What's the validation?
Well, I think by the time you get there, they've already read something of yours.
Okay.
So the validation comes in them agreeing to the meeting, and then imposter syndrome is still going in your system. But once you start bouncing ideas around and the response you're getting starts working.
So you have to have stuff out there first.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to write before you're paid to write, definitely.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm trying to say, because if you don't create something and have something visual that they can say, and you can say, oh, I wrote this that you've seen.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That
How
helps,
do you then prove that you've written something? Because I mean, if you're a writer, you don't always think, do you have to get a crew together and make something?
I think
script journey.
that medium has changed now more days with the pace of social media. I think the method has changed, because you can still send scripts to people and damn sure make your first 10 pages the best 10 pages you've ever written.
Yeah. Sure.
And like there are still those ways to do things, but the medium has changed where we're allowed to put more content out. We're allowed to show that body of work that people normally would look for. So I think, yeah, you can still go into those meetings, but again, know what you're talking about first and foremost. I don't think anyone writes not knowing how the next part of their script goes.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, sometimes, but generally, if you'll have a rough idea. So let's go, well, what's next? Because that's normally the question. Okay, this is great. What's next? And then you can continue. I've had conversations like that anyway. So what's the next episode? And I was like, well, it's this. And I go, okay, you're not bullshitting me. Right, let's talk more.
Sure.
And then it builds on from there. But yeah, I think just knowing.
I think as well, I definitely agree. I think it's also, if you've written a first episode something and you've gone to a company or producer, I think there's nothing wrong in being like, I'm not sure, that's why I'm here for you. You guys are a company, support me and my development to further this idea. That's the whole point of collaborating, to be able to be like, I don't know. I've done this bit, help me fill the puzzle, you know.
So speaking from a series perspective then, renewals are hard to come by. So you do a series, you might not get a second season. So does this affect your decision to write an open-ended season finale after being commissioned, or do you prefer to close a chapter?
I think generally speaking, it doesn't affect my decision to write. I think there are some great series out there that have open ends and are amazing. I think it just that's for audience feeding, to be like, we can have a second season. But I personally like things that are closed. And then they'll leave enough trickles in like episode 8 out of 10 to be like, you can branch off here, but the season itself is closed. I like a body of work, like a good album. Like a good album, I want it to feel concise. But in terms of like just general industry, I think it's smarter to do that. Like the EastEnders stuff that we worked on, it was kind of a series that you'd write, work with a bunch of people, but the idea was to at least leave the tail end, at least when I was into it. Generally speaking, I think it came out as like a closed project. And then it was a whole new set.
We did a few, because we weren't in the same year, were we?
No, I was 1 and 2. You were 3.
One, yeah.
Can you guys explain what you're saying, what you're talking about?
Sorry, so yeah, we
This
weren't
is a
in
ballet
the same.
musical
Sorry.
we wrote together.
Tell us more.
still
Set
have my
on
Lycra.
Albert Square. It's real avant-garde.
Yeah, I've got my Lycra still. But yeah, so essentially it was a series where every season was new. It was like a new initiative they did for like young actors.
It was really good.
Writers. It was actually a really good project. So I was acting at the time, and we got a call saying, listen, write this piece, send 500 words in about a guy who needs to confess his love. And that was like it from there. Like sent it in and it all was in there. But the essence of that series was to make a closed-ended piece, but the whole thing was to be, a whole new set of characters every year. So it was like, that in essence worked because they had the grounds for like EastEnders. The foundation was there.
And the characters did go in. The characters we made then lived in the real EastEnders for I don't know.
I don't know how long their seasons were,
yeah.
but yeah, they got to transition into the real world. But the idea there was, yeah, to have a closed-ended season. I think it worked. I think it was good. I think it's good to give people like a solid body of work, personally.
And when you were pitching, did you have your whole story in that pitch, or did you develop that pitch with them?
It was kind of all around the table.
Yeah, it was
you developed.
group thing,
yeah, it was all kind of around the table. Again, tapping into things of what do you think you see in television, what do you think you don't see,
right?
What stories would you like to tell? It was very in depth in that regard.
Did they have a structure that they gave you as far as how to tell it, or was you kind of like a bit more open?
You did a boot camp for 4 weeks on Hill Street. It was incredible.
So you learned bears from it,
amazing. And you got people like Tony Jordan coming in to talk to you,
man.
giving you like amazing things, and you're just there being like, wow, this is lit. This is serious, real. I hope they commissioned my script, and they didn't, and I cried. Like, I was emotional. But I actually read it not too long ago, and it was proper shit.
When you get onto schemes like this or working on a commissioned program, you work in writing teams. So how does that work when you've got your own dreams and I'm a writer like this? It's a bit now it starts to be about teamwork. So how do you guys manage your personal kind of, but also assert yourself as a writer? How do you get your voice heard?
When you come into it, you don't know anything. Or I didn't know anything at the time. And it was weird. You kind of go, oh, this is the industry, where you're not the only guy in the room. And you kind of, that was my first foray into figuring out that the industry is bigger than me in my room on my laptop. It's like, it's always going to be collaborative. Every film set you might step on, even in this room, there are cameramen and lighting that's been done. It's like, everything's been a collaboration at some point. But to not hold back, it's tough, but at the same time you realize these are 10, 20 other people trying to do the same thing I am.
And how do you guys get, like, if you've got a strong idea of like, this is actually going to work better, especially if you're maybe a newbie?
Yeah, but I suppose you're always, like, when you are in writers' rooms with other people, I think you can kind of gauge it as well. And people, if you're with a good group of people, you know when to kind of push forward and when to step back. Like, I've been in writers' rooms where there's like the head writer and you're only there to contribute. So there's sometimes you have an idea and you love it and you're pushing, and then there's moments where you have to go, this is not my show, and you don't want it. Okay, I'll sit back. But then, you know, if it's your project and you really want to push for something, I think everyone, what's lovely is that if you are in the room and people do break into arguments and they do start arguing and stuff like that, I think it can only be a good thing sometimes, because it means that everyone's invested. No one is quiet for it. Yeah, exactly. And it's only in rare occasions where you might come across someone that's a little bit just arrogant, and that's right. But as a general rule, I think most people are in the room because they just want the very best for that particular project. And you have to find a way to assert yourself, like being confident.
It's hard though. It's really
I can imagine being intimidating.
I sat through it loads, just a whole day of just listening to other people, because I'm like, yeah, but my ideas are like lit. Or it's just maybe you just don't believe in it enough, and you're just like, well, this is kind of better. Maybe they're right. They've done more than I have, and I don't know. Even when I go into writers' rooms today, I'm like, all the writers are way more experienced than I am. So sometimes I would just be sat there, just being like.
Yeah, you don't want to then pitch a story and then they go, oh yeah, that was in that show yesterday.
Yeah,
that's where I got it.
But what's funny as well is like, it's also having to learning to chuck stuff out. And because I remember when I first started, and even now, like being in a room and kind of being quiet, and you're like, oh, that's not quite right. But then you watch other writers that just sit there and they just chuck stuff. Just chuck. Yeah. And it keeps getting dismissed and they don't care. They just keep going at it. And those are the people you admire because they're fearless. You get what I mean? And I think sometimes you can be a bit fearful and you're just a bit like, I'll say, and you say nothing, and then you start to remember that you've said nothing and you've been there for 2 hours. And someone's paying you and you start worrying that the producer's sitting there going, why am I paying this person to sit here in silence?
The anxiety I've had.
Like you can't know.
Home, you're like, oh God, this idea.
Yeah.
And I didn't speak and everyone else was speaking.
Best idea, and then someone said, I get that.
Back to like the whole first money. I got on a scheme with Line Pictures for like BAME writers like last year, and they put a bunch of us together with a bunch of professional writers, and it was that same thing. And I think for the first half of the day, I didn't speak. Like I was observing, but really, I was just keeping my stories alone. It's like, croissant, and then you finally start dropping, and then it's the same, like you said, innit? They'll get rejected, they'll carry on. It's not, there's weird, that anxiety, that fear, for whatever reason, that fear of rejection, you just don't want to.
But I think it's because you always hear horror stories as well. I had a friend who went over to America and he was in the writer's room and he prepped and he had loads of ideas. And it must have been like 12 people in the room and people were talking and stuff and he finally decided to say something and he chucked out an idea and it was like, oh, what about if the character did that? And then apparently the lead writer went, why would the character do that?
No, don't do
Why on
that.
earth? Why on earth would the character do that? Anyway, anyone else have any other ideas? Like, yeah, and apparently it just made him go.
I couldn't be
I'm just going to sit down.
Yeah, I'm just
The rest of that list.
Speaking
Yeah,
of,
Close that.
Yeah. done with that.
that would hurt.
Put that in the
like
bag.
really
croissant.
upsetting. That's so upsetting.
Yeah. But then I suppose at the same time, like he's a brilliant writer and he just had to push through it, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And not take it personally,
Yeah.
which is hard to do because it's
In a
your
room full of
idea.
people.
In front of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. And that's you've said that you're writing and someone gone, that's a crap idea. It's crushing.
Yeah.
Have you lot thought about like America, writing, going over there and get the writer's room, think about doing it?
Yeah,
It's a dream, isn't it? It's a
Yeah.
dream. Yeah.
Why is it the dream? Why is America the dream? Do you not? There's
Is it
that whole
payable?
thing.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, let's
But I mean, okay,
let's be honest. That's definitely up there. We all know that that's,
Let
yeah.
me change it then.
Sorry,
What
I
about
mean
globally?
their budgets are bigger.
Yeah, they do have it. But globally, do you guys look at any other space? Because America, I would assume, is oversaturated. Yes, it's the golden mecca. Well, Hollywood's a bit tarnished now, but
I like what's going on in Scandinavia, but
They
I
they're
don't
making
really
cool-
write
really
that sort of material, so I don't.
dark, serious dramas.
Yeah.
crime
Ghana
stories.
is a really cool spot.
Say that again, please.
Ghana is a really cool spot.
And for the people at the back.
Ghana. Ghana.
Where?
Where?
Where's that?
Unfortunately, Daniel had to leave. Wrap this up, please.
No, there's like a really weird surging kind of film industry in Africa happening at the moment, which I've been writing for. And there's a production company out there, Media Concepts, my friend Joy runs it. But yeah, he's like basically smashing the industry. And it's the level out there isn't what we have. Our side is like, again, why America? Because they have bigger production values, they have bigger budgets. It doesn't necessarily have that yet there, but it's like an industry, if you feel you have the talent and the stories, the narratives to push it. Yeah, it's a thriving, it's coming up. It's definitely like an area.
So there is that thing about, go on.
I was going to say, France is a pretty cool
yeah.
place as well. I discovered a series called
Brack.
Call My
Agent. Yeah.
Call My Agent. Really, really good show, and it just made me want to watch more shows, and that was part of it. I think France is very emerging. I'm working with a company called Trace, and they've opened me up to a whole bunch of production companies and shows that are out there. That might be a step. It might be a step, yeah.
So, go on.
No, I was just gonna say I'm fascinated by America. Like
Yeah. I think that's what we'll grow up.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see from the quality of shows and also like being in a room with like a budget, like working on my show and how much writers and for how long I can have them to come in and chuck ideas compared to like I've worked on a couple of just Netflix shows which were British shows but American money and then it was completely different where I could have like 2 writers. I was in the room for weeks with like 8 writers, do you know what I mean? And I mean there's a big difference between those 2 things because you can knock out storylines together so quickly and so you don't have to get wrapped up in those things. You can go away and start writing really good stuff because you've had 8 minds planning out that story, and I think that's the great thing about America.
So I was actually going to say, from the perspective of the US doing it better, where are we failing in the UK when it comes to writing and getting stories of ours or stories that represent what we want to watch? Where are we failing or doing better, or how does it compare to the other industries?
Just more, isn't there? There's just
Okay.
like if you just immediately look at like the diverse shows they have out there, there's so many. Like part of the reason when Timewasters, I was at the ITV thing and I saw the trailer come up, I was literally like, I was like, yo, this is Christmas. Like, it's time traveling, it's black people. I was like, honestly, I was over the moon. And like, whilst that is an important feeling to have, like, we should, like, it's like when I saw Aki and Saltfish, I was like, like, honestly, it does something to me. I saw, is it the Curry's advert or something with
No,
the
IKEA.
IKEA advert with
Everyone's
the black
going
family?
crazy.
I saw it. I was like, my girlfriend's white. I was like, Teresa, come in here. She was like, what? And I was like, oh. You know what I mean? Like, and if I see an IKEA advert and I'm getting gassed, that says that is the problem, innit? An IKEA advert is getting me very gassed because, like, Daniel, yours is probably, I mean, hopefully I'm not wrong, is one of the only diverse maybe the only one with 4 diverse leads, right?
Yeah.
Mainstream show on ITV.
Like, come on now, like that shows where we're failing. I don't think, I mean,
So it's about representation and not the process and of writing and getting your stuff on. It's just literally about representation where we're not doing as well in comparison to America.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of quality in the UK in regards to the writing. I think we're in a really, really good age, especially in the drama. I think we've got brilliant dramas, but yeah, like you said, it's representation, and I mean, it's something we talk about all the time, but I think it's a gatekeeper thing, isn't it?
Sure.
It's the commissioners, are they going to risk?
but we shouldn't be a risk. That's so
I know,
fucking annoying.
That's why it's in quotations. But like I don't really understand why it's still kind of a risk. And Timewasters is a prime example of a show that's doing very well.
Yeah, the good thing about your show as well is that it's not rooted in like, no disrespect to it because I love it, but like Top Boy, where we get it, its production values are super high. It looks great, story is good, but it's just rooted in the culture that we know and is portrayed so many times over and over. Where you're like, again, sci-fi. I'm a big Quantum Leap fan, so like, that is like my opus for like just television. So yeah, the fact it's like the representation. It's just showing it in a different light. It can have crazy stories. It just it can be any colour, but it's
So you mentioned. Oh, go on.
I mean, I guess it's much smaller here as well. So there's so few people, so few gatekeepers, so few channels to be commissioned on. In comparison to America, I mean, so I guess that could play into it a lot as well as far as getting through. But I think we've all seen it. Things are changing. Like slowly but surely. It feels good, even though it doesn't feel great. Like
I feel like I weirdly feel like, and tell me what you guys think. I feel like the internet scene and the short film scene and all these scenes are, for me, more exciting than what I'm seeing on telly. I think when we're going to film festivals, when we're going to like all these things, and you're meeting all these creators, and you're seeing the work they're creating, because of cameras being cheaper now, the quality's incredible.
Oh man!
And like it's a really exciting realm there because there aren't really any gatekeepers. We're content creators. We make them. Whereas on TV, it's like it can take 3 years for your idea to get somewhere, then still not get the green light, and you'll start again. So I'm really excited about that, but also commission me, please.
So you mentioned you went on a BAME writers scheme. So how useful are BAME writers schemes? Do they get you in front of the right people? And then when you're in front of the right people, do they take you seriously because you've come through this way? Because people get a bit funny about quotas and you're only in here because you're black or Asian or gay or something like that. So
yeah, for that scheme specifically with Lime, it was like Lime are dope. They make like Hollyoaks and a bunch of other shows that are really doing well on E4 and stuff. And it was came in to develop a show they already had with 2 professional writers who had been in the game since like the 90s. And it was like I didn't know. I thought it was just you get paid on the scheme, innit? So it counted as my first professional gig in it, and I learned so much about even. There's a great storytelling and sitting in a room with people. If you're told to do that and come up with some ideas, doing that with them taught me what you can do and what not to do in order to come up with ideas. How to hear ideas, how to like play on one and go back and forth for a while and then see if it stays around with you. Even just something as simple as we're gonna write about living in London. Tell us some stories about London, and you sit there for hours just talking about London, and then someone will say one idea, a story that actually happened to them or a friend, and you're like, oh, let's play on that. That ties into the theme of loss that we have in this one. So I learned so much. It was like 3 days. It was like that short, great education. And then to go away and get paid to then write a treatment for an episode of my own, which was another learning process. Then you get notes, first time you get professional notes from producers, and then you get more notes, and then back and forth, and you're like, great, amazing education. Then contacts now to that company along with others. Got
so that was a good BAME scheme.
Great, man. Got referred to agents and stuff, and now I can always just contact them to show them ideas I have.
I think, no, I was just going to say, like, I think they can only be a good thing. I think sometimes, I think a lot of, like, people from ethnic backgrounds, they don't, because they never see their stories, they never ever think of themselves in that world, you get what I mean? And I think when those initiatives are set up, it attracts a whole new type of people to come through the door, and I think that's it's helping the change. You know what I mean? So I'm for them.
Yeah, definitely. Because imagine removing them. Like, it'd be, we'd be fucked. The reason they have to push them is that and even I'm sure when you guys go into writer's room now, it's still like, you're not really going into the most diverse rooms. You might be one of two, one of three.
I was going to say, did you learn any like new techniques when you were on the scheme? As
far as storylining or
anything, writing, storylining?
Specifically, yeah, I mean, specifically because, I mean, I don't, as far as an episode, you know, you write your treatment and it was like, you know, make sure you're weaving, because it was like an ensemble piece with a lead who was dealing with an ensemble of people, which I can't go into, but I don't know if that makes sense. But basically,
it's an ensemble in an ensemble.
An ensemble within an ensemble. And it was like, you know, if we're going to have an hour long, split it into 4, have a little twist or return at the end of each quarter, wrap it up by this point, really set up that story by the heart, you know, that sort of stuff, innit? I mean, because I've always just written 30-minute comedies. So it's a great education in like dramatic writing that way.
Everything.
So if you don't do a scheme, and for those who are like you know, you've written at home, you know you're good at, you've got a talent, when's the point that you've got to go and get some education? And how, if you don't go the scheme way, have any of you studied like university, anything like that, or is it all been organic? And does everybody need that education? Do you need some sort of degree in writing?
Not necessarily, I don't think. I think in a weird way, watching television is a way of being studious. I personally think if you want to be a writer, you should try and look for the most critically acclaimed written shows in the genre that you want to do, and kind of study that way. Reading scripts in general. There's tutorials all over YouTube and stuff like that as well. And I think it's always a learning curve. It's a process. Even when you've made it, there's still things you develop on. We're very lucky in the sense that there's so many platforms to watch shows and things like that. And you can study all over the
And none of you guys are feature film writers, or you've got plans to?
Just working on
just a couple. Just a couple.
We've got like 5 on a shelf.
Yeah. We can pitch them now, right?
Pitch fest,
go. You got a budget?
Every TV writer, you really want to make films?
Nah, both.
I think it's both.
Especially because the landscape's changed, because TV is a new film, as they say.
It's just a big challenge. I like the bigger challenge of making a cohesive piece over like 120 pages that is like, it's that body, where you don't get the luxury, or you still have to put them in, but you don't get the luxury of like, end that episode, now I can build you up in some other story, and then feature back into that story. It's like, no, it's like, this is a solid body of work. Yeah, again, that's the feature's the challenge. I think it's the biggest challenge. It's like, why not climb Everest?
For me, I have loads of ideas, and then sometimes you just think that's not a TV show, that's a feature, or that's a short film even, or a short story, and I just write all of them. Write all of them. Like, even if it's not going to get made, it's like spend a day writing this short because it's a really cool short story. And then do it, because then you've got a short story. Then you know.
That's quite nice.
And it's like,
I don't write just for the sake. I don't do that. I got bills.
I like to live my life and spend time with the family.
I want to quickly throw in, we were talking about the gender. What about finding a gay person or someone who's, especially disability? I don't think black productions maybe are as up on getting disabled characters or writing for disabled characters. Or again, we're in the minority.
Sure.
Have you guys ever thought about that? Does you think, you know?
Yeah, we just need to try harder in that respect, without a doubt. Like, I definitely want my work to do that. Just need to try harder, do more.
Just the last thing you want to do is be looking at an idea you have which came from a passionate place, and then being like, okay, I've got to have this, I've got to have that, I've got to have this. It has to come from a place of something that's genuine, you know. But yeah, that's something definitely that needs.
Yeah, if we want to be progressive, we should try and integrate that more.
Okay, we've got like limited time for the Circle Creative Workshop. So what I'm going to get you guys to do is, we've got like 5 minutes to do this. The theme is crime. I want you to come up with a cool synopsis, including the genre, whether it's a thriller, romantic comedy, or whatever. And is it a series, a movie, or a documentary, or whatever? And we'll pass it through our other upcoming episodes. And
we've got 5 minutes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Crime.
So much.
To think of a synopsis of a crime.
Yeah.
What, all together?
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Don't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
You've got, okay, let's think about, what is it? Is it going to be a romantic story, thriller, horror, drama?
Romantic comedy with
a
crime,
Yeah.
but not out of sight. Out of sight? You
No,
never
it's
seen
not
that?
out of sight.
Okay.
You don't know?
You ever seen Out of Sight?
No, what's Out of Sight?
George
It's
Clooney
it's an Elmore Leonard book. It was a film though, George Clooney
Yeah.
and J-Lo.
Yeah, yeah.
You know who J-Lo is?
No, who's that?
Fine, let's go.
Oh,
so
shit.
All right, so it's starring J-Lo. All right,
The
so we've got that.
Pomeranian.
Yeah.
So it's a crime story,
Yeah.
romantic comedy.
Okay.
Who are
So-
our
No,
characters?
I want J-Lo in it.
Yeah, J-Lo.
Yeah, there we
She's
go.
cast.
So is the romance between
No.
the cop and the rubber, or is it rubber, cop?
Do they have to
Okay.
be?
Cop and Rebel.
I want to see like killers who are doing like some vigilante stuff that are like totally doing something that's awesome, like preying on serial killers. I watched Definite
So
recently.
basically,
You watch what?
Definite.
Like-
Blew my mind.
Can we
Like,
Serial
remove-
killers.
but it's romantic comedy.
Serial
like,
killers,
Mr.
serial
Beast.
It's a
Yeah.
romantic comedy.
So it's like serial killers after serial killers.
Right,
So
like
they're
Dexter.
serial killers
So we've got serial killers.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah. I got a name
killing
right.
serial killers.
Killing serial killers.
Yeah.
And it's romantic.
And it's a romantic comedy because it's about their journey as they go through killing these killers.
Killing these killers.
So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a Bonnie
Like,
and Clyde
yeah.
couple.
And
out
is it
there.
killing them?
So wait, so
Bonnie and Clyde style couple.
Yeah.
Natural born killers.
And maybe with every person they kill, they learn about something new to help their relationship.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah,
wait,
yeah,
okay, let's rewind a bit. Let's
Yeah.
rewind.
See, that's
So
nice.
So there are two leads. So we've got two leads. How many
Yeah,
leads?
yeah.
So we've got two leads.
They're both black.
We'll black J-Lo up. It's fine.
Oh, we're going to blackface.
Halo.
It's a rom-com. It's a romantic comedy.
It's a rom-com.
We've got black in capital letters. Two leads. They're black. So it's a male and female. We're
Yeah.
not going LGBTQ.
Oh,
Oh, hello.
Just thinking.
They could be bi.
Okay.
Could do,
Polly.
but you know.
Okay,
Have
we're
that
going male,
poly, yeah.
female. So they're a couple.
Yeah, and they kill serial killers
Why?
because they
Why? What's their
Good
Because they don't
motivation?
like
Good
serial
What's
killers.
their motivation?
Oh, okay.
because their parents, friends, loved ones were killed by serial killers.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
wait. So hold on, wait. So you got male, female. Are they a couple or are they brother and sister? Because both their parents happen to be.
It doesn't have to be both, but I just mean they've got a common ground, which is they're the result of a family issue of serial killing.
We need more.
Should we mention
It's
that
becoming more
the
like
year
a-
is
I'm gonna write this for
2054?
myself then.
It's more
Alright,
like a
so
kitchen
let's mention
drama
it's
now.
2054.
Okay.
Overpopulation
So
is rife, so therefore it's a job that's actually made by the state.
Oh, wow.
Wait.
Hello.
Let's
It's
do
not a
that
crime
again.
then. It's not a crime.
Oh
then.
shit, it's not a crime, is it?
not a
Ooh.
If it's sanctioned by the state, but it's
Not a crime, sorry. But
Okay.
maybe
Is
that's a facet, like an underground dark web, black web internet
You're
thing.
gonna have to rewind, and you're
So,
now
I
going
just
into
jumped
the
off.
space of the sci-fi realm. So it's a
Sorry,
sci-fi
shit.
romantic
Oh
comedy
shit,
crime
I lost
story.
it. I went
It's
up.
like the pressure of time is
How do
like
you
making
know
Yeah.
it's a sci-fi story?
I mean, I'm all for sci-fi, so...
Oh, you throw it in there.
Yeah, chuck it
It's
in.
A
literally
romantic
like Button
sci-fi.
Moon. We've got no budget, by the way. So you know, plastic stuff. Anyway, so look, we've got a male-female couple.
Yeah.
They're serial killers, and they go about killing other serial
I
killers.
love this.
Why? What's their motivation for real? Or can you explain? Go back to that.
Do we need to find the why right now?
They're
Do we not?
stoners.
Because I
Okay.
think
Yeah,
we've
do
got
we
a premise
discover
to
it?
Okay,
jump
you're
off
the
point.
writers. I'm
Yeah.
the facilitator.
I
Not
think we've
me.
got a jump off point there,
Okay.
and the point and the reason I think it's like they're and what not reason they're doing it, but we could go along with that whole learning something from. Is it a film
They're
or a
learn-
TV show?
What is
Oh,
it?
I was thinking-
Ooh.
Oh.
Because I was saying I was like TV show because then every
Oh, wow.
person they kill is
Every
like
okay.
Nice.
Maybe they're killing to
Nice.
save someone. Sounds a bit cliche, but like maybe saving to kill. So we don't know it, but they've been
Maybe-
given like you got to go after these.
Because they know who
So
they're
we
gonna
don't
kill.
know it. It's the big reveal. They got a
Yeah,
little, little daughter tied up. Please, mommy, no. And like that's. and then
I think you should
that's
do
the-
some episodes that would be dope, innit? Like
Yeah.
they're saving them, and sometimes they're just like
So
actually
could it-
preying on serial killers just to do the
Maybe maybe they've
Yeah.
been given a list and they just have to do it to save.
kill
Kill
list.
list.
Kill list.
Kill
Pow.
list.
Have they been given a
That
kill
That was a good
list?
film.
Yeah.
You seen the film Kill List?
Actually, I haven't seen that. But
That's good.
They've been given a kill list.
I thought you were
Can I ask
titling.
why they've been given a kill list? Or they've just got this kill list in their hand?
Saving
You got
someone.
Who
facts to
gave them the
them.
kill list?
Anonymous.
Liam Neeson.
No, maybe they made it.
So hold a minute. Have they been given this random kill list? So are they under threat to kill? but if they don't kill.
Oh yeah, apply
'Cause
pressure.
They'll kill their daughter, isn't it? Like you said.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
they-
So they've got a daughter.
Yeah.
So where's
Okay.
the daughter? She's taken.
She's been killed. Hey now. Wait, all right. So yeah, so they have
So wait,
to
she's got
kill
they've got
those.
a daughter.
Yes.
Yeah, and they
And
got to
where's
kill
the
those
daughter?
others.
Wait a
She's been
minute,
kidnapped by another serial killer,
Oh!
and they have to kill. And that serial killer, that serial killer said, "Go kill these other serial killers, or I'm gonna kill your daughter."
Oh! Wait,
And it's called. And it's called.
I'm
Come
gonna kill
on.
your daughter.
I watch it. I ain't gonna lie.
I'm
watch
gonna
it.
kill
So wait,
your daughter.
so
Coming to
what?
the side. We went a bit nuts.
So-
Wow.
Is the
10.5 hours.
Right as fast as you like.
Daughter slaughter.
Oh, shoot. It's called Daughter
Should be-
Slaughter.
Daughter slaughter.
Daughter slaughter.
Oh, listen, we'll work on it. Could be an episode title.
That
Could be an
might episode
title.
title. Yeah, yeah,
Episode
episode
Wait,
title.
wait, wait. So daughter's kidnapped by a serial killer
Yes.
who tells our serial killer couple,
Yeah.
she's couple, to kill other serial killers.
killers.
Why? Because he wants to be the only serial killer.
Because
in
he wants to
town.
be the top dog serial
He wants to
killer.
be the top boy.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
The man is-
Serial killer. Oh,
It's a
shit.
comedy, though.
He's
Sorry,
an only
yeah.
child. He doesn't like sharing.
Because he wants to be number one.
Yeah, I get it.
Because they're damaging his rep.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh shit, we're running out of time.
No,
Well, I mean, I
we're
think,
done time.
yeah, I think
Time's
we're done. I think that's
Yeah.
I think
we're in a
complete.
good
So
place
who are we
That's
selling
ready,
this to?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube.
We own the
Yeah.
rights.
On a bad series.
We're done.